Oh, what time is it now? It's time for a freaking story.
I love stories.
I almost started us off on a bad note again.
Oh, yeah?
But guess what, guys?
What would that bad note have been?
Saying swear words. To off-put our audience. So...
Hey, guys. The Chatmen are back with fresh stories, but here's the deal. Switching it up. You know how I'm always talking about awesome wizards and elves and stuff, and Phil's always talking about spacemen and little green men.
Little green men? When did I once? Lizard men. Okay.
So we swapped it.
Plant men.
We swapped it around.
Yeah.
This week it's special because this story, I'm going to be telling a sci-fi story.
And I'm going to be telling a fantasy story.
Are we still going to keep the same you go first than me?
Yeah,
okay.
I'll go first.
Okay, Phil will go first on his wonderful story.
I really like going first.
Real quick, I want to tell you guys we have a sponsor this week, and that sponsor is Microsoft Word. Thanks, Bill Gates. Without your diligent programming, we wouldn't even be able to write this.
Have a window of opportunity, a gateway, Bill Gates way to be able to. Let's start up our stories. Also, by the way, I hope you enjoyed me suffering last week.
Oh yeah.
When I tried that habanero pepper, I totally spoiled the end, but doesn't freaking matter.
It's not what we were tasting, it was your reactions that people should be watching for.
Yes.
So we didn't really spoil it unless you started, screaming in pain right now. That would be a spoiler.
Yeah, that would be a spoiler.
I just spoiled it.
Yeah.
It's alright, people would have figured that one out.
Perhaps. That wasabi really cleared up my sinuses near the end there, at the very end of the video. Anyway, so, I'm going to be telling my story. This one is...
You got a title?
No, I'll just call it, The Legs of Klimt.
That's good.
Who's Klimt? Oh,
we'll find out.
Dive right in. Alright. Here's a little something about fantasy. It's called that for a reason. It's not real, it's fake. It's made up. It's a waste of your time. It's a waste of my time. Elves, orcs, stop looking at my computer, Truman.
Where do you want me to look?
Your computer.
I'll just read my story.
Elves, orcs, trolls, they're all fake. A myth. A sham. They're not real.
That makes me sad.
But this is fact. There are alien races that very much so resemble these man-made myths somewhere out there in our galaxy.
You just couldn't get away from doing a sci-fi,
no,
could you?
I freaking couldn't. And what if I told you that thousands or millions of years in the future, when some of the humans from that time discovered these creatures, immediately rounded them up, placed them on a single terraformed planet that was sculpted specifically to emulate the Gygaxian legends that Dungeons & Dragons invented, along with that one guy that made Lord of the Flies, Fellowship of the Return of the Twin Towers. Whatever.
That's good.
Twin Towers.
Pretty good joke.
Here's a story that actually happened one time in the future. It takes place on this world known as Kreworm. Kreworm.
Oh, yeah.
See, it's spelled Kreworlm. Now, I want a little contest for you guys, any of you viewers out there. Pronounce it the best you can.
Mm-hmm.
That's, again,
spell it.
Kreworlm, all one word, Kreworm.
Yeah, Kreworm.
And I want you to record yourself saying that. Send it, just post it on our Facebook page, and that's it. Just a video of you saying that word, and that's it. Just put that on our Facebook page. And it is a land generated specifically, Kreworm this is a land generated specifically for the entertainment of those that watch the adventures that occur through large monitors up in the heavenly space stations above.
So it's like reality television?
Yes, this is a world generated specifically for Game of Thrones fans.
Okay, so here's my question. Do the people on the planet know, is it a Truman Show situation? Or is it like...
I'm not very clear about that.
Okay.
I feel like if they knew, they'd just be like, oh, it's the gods. Or they probably would be like, oh, well, I mean, nothing we can do about it. We're just stuck here.
Okay.
Because there are laws that prevent people from leaving or entering this planet.
Okay.
Also, there's not a lot of devices that can allow people to fly. That's a wizard thing, which we'll get into in a little bit. Here, our story starts with a single human lead, and his name is Klimt. That's Clemft, because I'm just on a roll with the names today. I'm just making them the best. All right, Klimt was a short boy, being the product of a male dwarf and a woman. He was often referred to as a halfling, not because he had dwarfism in his blood, but because he also had no legs.
I get it.
Yes. One day when he was young, Klimt, he went to the fair with his mother and father. There were all sorts of strange creatures at this fair. There were Quicksand, which were a light-haired, blue-skinned, pointy-eared folk with compound eyes and 2 antennae that grew from their foreheads. But in the magical world of Querworm, though, they were known as elves, and to maintain their roles, they always had their antennae removed at birth, chopped right off. There were goblins, which are actually called groblins.
Groblins.
From the planet of Bagos. And they're just the same.
No, just okay.
Yours is not the same as mine.
Okay,
they're groblins in your world.
Happy coincidence.
It is a happy coincidence. I'm just saying the real goblins, they are groblins. What you said just happens to be right.
Oh.
Yeah,
I got it right.
That is correct. He got it right.
Ding, ding, ding.
That happens.
Chicken dinner over here.
Basically, I'd just say that they are Yodas.
Little Yodas?
Yeah, little Yodas. Anyway. The Pistachiamen, which were a pistachio-covered, colored, a pistachio-colored super buff race with pulsating blood vessels, gigantic muscles, and tusks that protruded from their lower gums. In Querworm, they were known as orcs, and they were always injected with a serum, or a potion, as they called them, that lowered their intelligence significantly. They were otherwise an intelligent race, but they lowered their intelligence and rendered them little more than noisy and extremely violent berserk brutes. Well, Klimt, he went to the fair with his mother and father. One of these orcs broke free from a cage that it was being held in. The orc promptly smashed Klimt's father to pieces, ate Klimt's mother, and ripped Klimt's legs right off of him before tossing him into the asphalt parking lot, where everyone parked their magical clockwork horses.
Sounds cool. I want a magical clockwork horse.
Luckily, someone with magical healing powers came to the rescue and healed him, ignoring his cries that he'd rather be dead than alive without parents or legs. Being an orphan is bad enough, but being nothing but a torso, a head, and a couple arms, put him at a little under 3 feet tall. And although this was upsetting to Klimt, there was a ray of hope that pierced through the cloudy atmosphere of his depression. Between his strings of verbal abuse, the magical man that saved him was told him tales about the legendary Centurions that roamed about in a distant mystery land. The Centurions were mighty warriors that were once just like Klimt, but they were gifted legs. And not just any legs. The lower half of their torsos were juxtaposed upon the shoulders of a goddamn equestrian.
Whoa.
That's Standman's term for horse. You know, layman's.
Oh.
Yeah, Standman's.
Okay, I get it.
That was a bad joke, but I don't care.
It was probably the best joke.
Thank you. Oh, what I would do for a couple of pairs of horse legs beneath my torso, Klimt said to himself as he dragged himself into the magical renting shop. You want some horse legs, eh? Said the magical man behind the counter. Well, I can't let you rent a clockwork horse. You've got to be at least 4 feet tall to ride those. He laughed. You're an orphan.
What? This guy's a jerk.
One day I will be able to gallop across these lands on horse legs, said Klimt, no matter what you say. In your dreams, he laughed. You here to rent my old magical floating baskets again? Yes, please, Klimt said. All right, that will be 10 silver slivers, please. Silver slivers, that's a good one. Mm-hmm. Klimt sighed and reached into...
What? I imagine it like they took a big bar of silver and like ran it over like a really big industrial cheese grater, and the little shreds that came out as a sliver.
Sure, it's fine. I don't.
Okay.
Yeah,
they're not
whatever.
Coins. They're just little scraps of metal.
They're little scraps of metal.
Little uniform scraps of metal.
They're silver colored. They're not necessarily made out of silver.
Okay.
They can be anything. Scraps of metal from any alien technology you want to think about. But anyway, 10 silver slivers. Klimt sighed and reached into his front pocket of the one article of clothing that he had. A jumpsuit made specifically for him by the magical man. 10 silver slivers right here, Klimt said, before reaching up above his head, sliding them onto the counter. The magical man turned to his magic closet and pulled out what looked like an ordinary wicker basket. But the moment he placed it above the floor, that's it. Hovered above the floor, without a sound and without any apparent sort of... Without any apparent sort of... That's supposed to say of, it said or. Propulsion system. Klimt lifted his arms and the magic man picked him up and sat him in the basket. A perfect fit, as usual.
Oh.
The magical man provided Klimt with an oar and said, "See you the next time your rent expires." Klimt sighed. "I wish you would just let me die," he said, paddling his way out of the rental shop. But as soon as he exited the magic rental shop, though, he saw a glorious sight. A Centurion! Wearing gold plating and wielding a mighty sword and wearing a golden helmet. Klimt was awestruck, and butterflies danced in his stomach. This was the day he'd been waiting for his whole life. "Hello there, son," the Centurion said. "Hello," Klimt managed. "I heard there was an immobile paraplegic around these parts. Have you seen one anywhere?" Klimt's eyes sparkled. "Yes, that's me!" he shouted. The Centurion tilted his head back and gave a throaty laugh. "Ha ha ha ha! Bullshit!" "No, seriously. If you look inside this basket, you'll find that I in fact have no legs." "You certainly are a jokester, young man," the Centurion chuckled. "But I am looking to help the children in need. I see that you must be some sort of magical man, being one of the few people who can manage flight. That's a million times better than having horse legs." "The magical basket is not mine. It disappears every week and I have to drag myself back to the shop to rent it again," Klimt shouted, tears running down his face. "Please," he cried. "I've always waited for this day to happen. I want to go with you." The Centurion took a couple steps back. Excuse me. The Centurion took a couple clops back.
Gotta get those onomatopoeias.
Yeah. Gotta drink some water. "Whoa now, you're starting to weird me out with all this crying. If you ever see a child in need, tell him that the Centurions await his arrival on the summit of Mount Slagitari. I'm off. I should have said that more dramatic. Please, don't. Please, don't go." And with that, the Studley man horse galloped all away into the forest. Studley, get it, stud? Because that's a male horse.
That's gross.
Yep. Anyway, Klimt cried for 15 minutes, then remembered what the Centurion said. You do know that stud means male horse, right?
Yes.
Why'd you say gross?
Because when you go and get a stud...
Oh, okay. Aren't they, like, emasculated or something?
No.
Oh.
The stud is, like... Little science tip here. If you're, like, doing show horses and you want a full-bred, and you have a mare...
What?
People will hire a stud to come impregnate the mare.
Oh. Okay, well, he's a stud... Well, he's a studly man.
I get it, because he's handsome.
That's what I meant. I didn't mean anything weird. Alright, Klimt cried for 15 minutes, then remembered what the Centurion said. "Tell him that the Centurions await his arrival on the summit of Mount Slagitari." Some echoes there for the fact that it's a flashback that happened like 2 seconds ago.
Yeah?
I know where Mount Slagitari is! On the edge of the village there was a forest, Shep Lorex Forest. On the other side of Shep Lorex Forest, Slagitari peeked out from over the horizon of trees. Klimt tightened his grip on his oar and pushed himself toward the trees. The Shep Lorex forests are called that for the fact that that's where the Shep Lorex live. Now you might be thinking to yourself, what are Shep Lorex? Well, that's a fantastic question. I'm glad you asked. No one in the entirety of Creworm know exactly what Shep Lorex are.
Ooh, spooky.
They certainly are mysterious creatures. Typically in fantasy stories, when one says that a creature has a head of a goat or the lower segment of a fish, it's only a way to cut down on time describing each individual detail of an alien species. But the Shep Lorex are so goddamned alien that no one really knows how to put them into words in terms that people familiar with Earth-based life can comprehend. So when Klimt entered the Shep Lorex forest, he was baffled by what he saw. The Shep Lorex scurry around on 7 thick tentacles that moved surprisingly fluid for land walking. These tentacles produce a mucus that shimmer brilliantly under the beams of light that escape through the canopy of trees that allow them to frictionlessly slip their thick tentacles together for easy mobility. And on the undersides, they are laced with what appears to be a black wool for traction. Telling you a little about the anatomy here.
I want to say right now,
yeah,
it's weird how our brains work the same because I mentioned tentacles in my story.
Oh, well.
2.
We didn't even talk about
what's coming, find out later, because Phil still got his story.
Alright. Each of these tentacles is tipped at a dark spear point, and upon these tentacles is upon the base of these tentacles, so I guess like above them, is a very thick trunk of muscles and tendons that link the head and the tentacles together. A foot further up the trunk, there are 3 long, thin, black, bony protuberances that extend from the trunk and each have 3 joints that each end with a flat palm shape and 2 long black claws. Are you still picturing this in your head?
Yeah,
Can you
it's
get this?
really scary.
Yeah, alright. A foot further up the trunk, that's where the head is. It is a large, toothless mouth on the very scalp of its, what you would call a head. Sort of like a sloth has a face on the top of its head.
Yeah.
It's just a mouth. Big old mouth.
Gross.
No teeth in it, a tongue that can shoot up to 20 feet, and below the mouth is a ring of multicolored, sparkling, iridescent eyes that line what could be conceived of as its neck area. Anyway, the Shep Lorex were all running around the trees, all a little shorter than Klimt was, catching squirrels and birds and rabbits and mice and small animals like that with their long tongues. Typically, they were harmless to humans because all you have to do is kick them in the trunk and you can screw up some of their tendons, thus paralyzing one of their tentacles for months. But when Klimt rolled his way into the trees, some of those Shep Lorex kind of looked at him and tilted their heads as a way to say something along the lines of, "Yeah, I would try a paraplegic." But Klimt wasn't aware of their intent until he was well into the forest. He didn't notice that the flock of Shep Lorex following him around was steadily increasing, nor did he notice that the Shep Lorex were following him in the first place. No, but the Shep Lorex were definitely following him. He might as well have been a goddamn basket of fruit cake salad, rowing his way into his inevitable demise.
A basket of what?
Of fruit cake salad.
Okay.
Being attacked by a good 30-something Shep Lorex. They went after him unrelentlessly, too. They came one after the other, slamming their heads into the side of the basket in an attempt to knock him over and spill out poor Klimt onto the ground like a sack of helpless potatoes. One after the other, they pounced into the side of the basket and rocked it and bobbed it like a rowboat in a hurricane. Klimt frantically sped up his rowing, desperately trying to escape the storm, but their tongues erupted from their gobs and wrapped around the basket, stopping it from moving. One of the Shep Lorex launched a tentacle at the basket and punctured the wicker. The tentacle would have been impossible to grasp. If it wasn't for the woolly surface that its underside... let me drink some water here. Should have got more water. Alright. If it wasn't for the woolly surface that its underside sported, Klimt hurriedly grabbed the tentacle with his free hand and bit into it with all his might. The Shep Lorex let out the loudest quack in the history of animal noises and pulled back, motioning to the other Shep Lorex that this was a force to be reckoned with. Klimt grabbed his oar and jabbed it into the side of another Shep Lorex, and they all scurried away, quacking and cackling at other woodland creatures that ran around the forest floor in sheer panic. Days of rowing went by. Days. Klimt's arms and neck were especially tired from rowing and from sleeping in his cramped basket, but he dare not leave the basket, for if he left the safety of his wicker sanctuary, may not be able to climb back in, and he would be an easy meal for the Shep Lorex. I don't even fucking remember anymore. Sorry. But eventually he made it. The base of Mount Slagitari was before him, but he had no idea how to ascend the mountain. It was nearly at a right angle, erupting straight out of the ground like a wall. I guess I better start climbing. Bramp! He was cut off by the sound of his oar and basket disappearing. It made a kind of dissipated in a cloud of smoke. And it's...
Does that noise happen every time?
Bramp! Yep, every time he runs out of rent. He has to drag himself back to the wizards. Anyway.
Sad.
Dissipated in a cloud of smoke, and his stubby ass flopped right into the ground. His rent had expired.
Oh.
A couple nearby Shep Lorex just happened to see this event from a clearing of nearby trees nearby. Redundant. No. And their mouths widened while drool trickled down their necks.
Gross.
Their tendony necks.
Yeah.
Better start climbing, he confirmed himself, and grabbed onto the side of the cliff, while the Shep Lorex curiously started advancing towards him. Pulling and extending one arm after the other, he ascended the cliff side while using the base of his torso as an anchor to plant himself as he pulled himself up the side of the cliff. Unfortunately, the Shep Lorex were aware of his vulnerability and decided to climb up after him, using their javelin-tipped tentacles and two-fingered fleshy fuzzy palms as their anchors. They got a bit of a late start on him, but they were ascending the cliff much faster than Klimt was, and at this rate, he was certain they were going to catch up to him. So he took a deep breath, reached into his front jumpsuit pocket with his free hand, and pegged them with silver slivers. I have no need for these anymore, he said to himself. Soon I will have horse legs. And the Shep Lorex fell to the ground and scurried away. Finally, Klimt reached the top of the cliff and exclaimed a joyous expletive, immediately seeing a whole team of horse-legged Centurions with gold-plated armor, helmets, and swords and shields and stuff. My boy, it is a pleasure to see you again, said the Centurion from earlier, trotting up to our hero, Klimt. See, I told you I was a paraplegic, Klimt cried out.
Yeah, proved you wrong.
The Centurion let out a throaty laugh. Ha ha, well, I'll be fucked, he chuckled. I suppose you're here for your treatment. Beaming, Klimt nodded. Then follow me! The Centurion reared back up on its hind legs and kicked his front legs while flexing his human arm muscles. Although it was a clear and cloud-free summer day, the clouds coalesced and produced a Chatmen bolt the size of a mountain and zip-zapped to the ground behind him.
That's metal as shit. It's so cool.
I know. The clouds immediately parted and went away after that.
I want that as like an album cover.
Yep. Whoa, that was weird, Klimt says. Almost magical? The Centurion turned around and galloped into the nearby doctor's office, leaving Klimt in the dust. Klimt dragged himself into the office and saw a man with a lab coat. You ready for your procedure, Klimt? How did you know my name? Good! Then get on the hospital bed. Klimt struggled to get onto the bed. Ha ha ha! Ha 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 ha! The doctor said. Klimt struggled some more, before the doctor stopped laughing and finally lifted him up onto the bed himself. So, how are we going to start this? Klimt asked excitedly. All right, I'm just going to inject you with this sleeping potion, then I'm going to do the operation on you while you sleep, the doctor laughed. Okay, do I at least get to pick the legs? Here we go! And he stuck Klimt in the neck with a needle. Blackness. He saw a glimpse of what was to come. He fantasized about galloping across open plains with beautiful golden horse legs, sun shining, wind blowing through his hair. Oh, so sexy. A flash of Magical Man's face echoed through his mind. No, this was to be a happy time. He pictured himself galloping down the sides of a beach shore, the waves hitting against his equestrian ankles, the salty air of a sea breeze, blood everywhere, blood all over his torso, and only a blurry haze when he tried to look down to see his legs. He's awake! We've got to give him more sleeping potion. 13 jabs in the neck and arms, then blackness once more. Wake up, Klimt. Your procedure is all done. Klimt opened his eyes. Laying on the floor on his side, a tarp draped over the bottom half of his torso, and what was now fixed beneath. Tarp covering that, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
Why am I on the floor? Well, after we brought you new legs in, we kind of realized that we didn't have enough room for you to lay on the bed. So we brought you down here, the doctor beamed.
They do this procedure all the time?
It sounds like a new guy to me.
Okay.
Are you ready to see your new legs? Klimt's eyes widened, and a big grin spread across his face. I've been waiting for this day my whole life, he beamed. Mr. Wizard, the doctor shouted. Klimt frowned as the magical man entered the room. Drinking my last bit of water here. The Centurion from earlier entered the room as well. You see, there was more bleeding than we thought was going to happen, so we had to call up Magical Man here to seal you to your legs so you wouldn't die. Say thanks to Magical Man. Klimt continued to frown, but managed a thanks before eyeing the doctor again. Can I please just see my legs now? All right, the doctor said. The Magical Man, the Centurion, and the doctor lifted him up from the floor and took some steps back. Here we go, the doctor shouted. I present to you your new legs. Klimt beamed in joy as the tarp was removed from his lower half, but his smile was soon replaced with confusion and then utter shock and fear. Juxtaposed beneath his torso was a goddamn hippopotamus body. Not even any legs, just the torso of a hippopotamus sewn beneath his abdomen. No legs. Why did you do this to me? Klimt shouted. The Centurion laughed. Well, we're always looking for new different types of Centurions for our army. Oh, sorry, this is the Centurion. Well, we're always looking for new different types of Centurions for our army to fight against the Minotaurians. But after seeing how your procedure turned out, I think we'll pass on taking legless hippopotamus recruits. Why don't I have any horse legs? Klimt sobbed. I ran out, the doctor said. For those of you who haven't checked out episode 20, you'll know the joke. But this is funny anyway. We're always looking... Oh, shit. I ran out, the doctor said. Horses are hard to come by in this day and age. That's why they're all clockwork horses here in this land. Also, I only had one hippo. Hippo even means horse in Latin. So honestly, I don't see what you're so upset about. Also, why the hippo legs are missing, I cooked those up and ate them for dinner a long time ago. The Magical Man said, well, I have a solution. I can rent you flying bathtubs for an additional 20 silver slivers a week. Klimt cried. That was a good episode, said a guy watching from one of the space station monitors. The end.
Yeah, okay.
That was a good episode. Somebody was watching it from the space station monitors.
Great.
That's it.
I like how it's like, hey Phil, write a fantasy story, and you're like, okay. And then
I tried, man. I freaking tried.
You just replace science with magic, and you replace aliens with mythical things.
Yep.
All right. Well, that was wonderful, Phil.
I did my best.
It's pretty good. I enjoyed that.
All right. I just like to point out, just in case this wasn't clear enough, the Magical Man was in it all along.
Mm-hmm.
Wanted to get more money.
Yep.
So now he has to fly around in magic bathtubs.
30 silver slivers every week.
30. That's right.
It's hard to get a job with a hippo body.
Yep, you can't. So,
Well,
and it's not like the Magical Man's gonna let him die in peace. He's gonna keep healing him.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's it.
That was good.
Thanks.
All right. Well, since we've decided we're going to start cutting these episodes into smaller pieces, I think what we're going to do is that we're going to stop the episode about now, and then we'll put up part 2. Last time we did like the day after. So part 2 will have my story. Just since we're cutting this on the day, I'm going to give you a little hint. It's about space.
Oh! So is mine. It was supposed to be fantasy, but I mean...
So stay tuned for part 2, where you will hear my story of science fiction.
Tomorrow.
Hopefully. But yeah, tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
See ya for now.